Hey, this is Joe from Home Studio Corner. High pass your reverbs. No clickbait today. Just going to show you how and talk about why. Here is a drum mix. This is actually the one I showed you in a recent video where we pitched the snare drum down. Here's what it sounds like right now with the drums in the room that I recorded and EQ and compression and things like that. Love it, but I'd love to have some room sound. So the way we recorded this, we were limited to 8 inputs. We used this, almost called it a FirePod, that Quantum 2626. And we chose not to do room mics, so we did kick and snare, 2 toms, a hi-hat mic, an overhead, 2 overhead mics, and then a fat mic. So the fat mic was over the kick drum, capturing kind of kick and snare with a ribbon mic. Sounds like this. So heavily compressed. It has a little bit of a room mic sound, like a close room mic. But I wanted, especially for this section where he's doing the tom fills, I wanted there to be more room sound, like it was recorded in a nice big drum room. So we're going to use reverb for that. So I've got a room reverb set up. This is the one I like for this particular sound in Studio One. As you can see, it's the medium studio setting. And I've got the length to, I don't know why it says negative, but it's a little over a second. And I like it for drum rooms when I need that drum room sound. So I'm going to put it on the snare drum and the toms bus, and I'll hit playback, let you hear it for a second dry, then I'll add the reverb in, and we'll talk about it. What do you hear? Obviously, we hear some space. We hear that little room sound, a little bit like, granted, I like Foo Fighters a lot. It has a little bit of some of the room sounds on like Hero or something like do-do-do-do, ga-do-do-do. Got that little bit of room sound, which I like, but do you hear the problem there as well? Let me play it for you again. I'm going to move this reverb fader up and down. So the reverb's off now, and as I bring it in, what do you notice in addition to the room sound that we have? It's not a trick question, but just take a listen. You know what I notice? I notice that A, I have the cool room sound, but B, I get this thickness in the drums that I didn't necessarily want. Like this kind of resonant muddiness is what I hear. And what ends up happening, so the reason I'm pointing this out is in the whole mix of the entire song, you can say, hey, I want some reverb. You add some reverb, and then a little while later you say, hey, my drums are sounding muddy, and you can't figure out why. This is why. Listen to it in the context with all the other instruments. It's complicated because when we take the reverb out, obviously the drums sound tighter and more like they're in some sort of a booth, right? They're tighter that way, but they also sound a little cleaner in the low end. When that reverb comes back in, let's listen to just the reverb by itself for a second. Listen to how much low mid-range and low end there is in this reverb. I mean, that's like that's a big amount, and it makes you feel like the mix is muddy, and then you end up doing lots of things to your drum mix to try to get rid of the mud when it was actually the reverb that's the culprit. So the solution, if you've watched my videos in the past, you've seen this. If you've used my mixing template, you've probably seen this in that template. I normally always have a high pass filter on my reverbs, and usually I think it defaults to around 200 hertz. So let's see what that does to the reverb sound. I mean, it got rid of the lowest amount of low end, but as I was working on this mix, I thought that's just not enough. It's not enough. So let's listen to our entire drums, and I ended up rolling up my high-pass filter up to 500 hertz. And what ended up happening was instantly the drums felt clean, as if they had no reverb in that low end, but still had the roomy sound in the top frequencies. Listen to what that sounds like. Can you hear the difference there? I'm going to bypass this plugin, and as I bypass it, listen to what happens to the drums, how they end up having all this extra thickness that's not necessary, but everything else about the drums remains unchanged. Did you hear that? If you didn't, rewind it again and listen. You'll notice that on the toms and the snare hits, there was this woo, 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 just constant woo, 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 woo that was happening, and that was just in the reverb. We didn't need that in the mix. We already had our drum sound that we wanted. We just need some reverb over the top. This is the way to do it. Now, some people will ask, Joe, why not do the high pass before the reverb? Well, my experience, the reverb can sometimes produce low frequencies, even if there's not a lot of low frequencies going into it, and that's why I put the EQ after. I'm EQing the sound of the reverb, so that way I know there's nothing down in these low mids or lows that's coming through. I don't want any sneaky low mids to sneak through. Here's what that reverb sounds like by itself. Now, is this always the solution? Should you always roll it off all the way to 500? Probably not. But I've found almost every time I use reverb, whether it's on drums or vocals or guitars or almost anything, I find myself, my mix cleans up quite a bit when I clean up the low end on my reverbs. Now, some reverb plugins have a built-in EQ that does this for you, but you don't have to have that type of reverb. I like this stock room reverb in Studio One. The plate sounds good, the studio sounds good, but they tend to be a little muddy in the low end. And rather than saying, oh, I don't have any good reverb sound, or going and buying a bunch of reverb plugins because they all sound kind of muddy, actually just throw a high pass on there and then you've got some great sounding reverbs. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, I have a mixing course that if you like this video, you would love that mixing course. You can check it out at homestudiocorner.com/mix. And if you're watching this the week this video comes out, the course is on sale, so you get extra savings. Go check it out, homestudiocorner.com/mix. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.